Lucky to have Florence Dufrasnes, Vice President Technical Authority at Airbus Defense and Space, and Vice President at Foundation Mines-Télécom. Hi, Florence.
Hi, Lobna.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to this podcast.
It's our pleasure, and we have a lot of things to discuss in this nice, authentic, good conversation today. So we will address, as I said, many topics, but before that, we are really curious about your academic background and your story to achieve this successful career, but also this journey in the tech environment and ecosystem.
Sure, Lobna, thank you. So, when I had to choose what to do, when I graduated, I had to choose what studies to do. I have to say I was not so strongly opinionated. I didn't know exactly. My father was an investment bank director, so he was basically funding company, trying to helping them to grow. My mother was a literature and history professor, very knowledgeable in her area. And both of them, I was very proud of them. I was putting them on a pedestal. And for sure, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to impress them. And therefore, even though my father tried to push me to do, of course, economic studies and go in the business area the way he was himself, I knew it would be difficult to shine under their shadow. And I decided I need to go my way and I need to impress them by doing something very different. And I actually chose engineering for this reason. But I was not disappointed because really, as I joined, 1 girl out of 10 boys, that's clear. I very quickly learned, I appreciated already science and technology. So this was no surprise, but I very quickly learned to appreciate that. And I went through my studies very, very nicely. So that was not really, I was really happy with the selection I had made. And right after, I joined the wireless industry. And the wireless industry at that moment was nothing close to what we know today. It was only wireless for the first responders, the taxi, and that kind of companies. There was no mass market wireless solution at that moment. It was actually starting, and I joined the team who were developing the standards and working on that. And rightly after, there was a little joke at home where my father would tell me, "Oh, my daughter is inventing the telephone." And of course, that was not the telephone exactly. And I was not completely inventing. That was not completely right. But at least I could see that I had managed my goal to really impress them on something that they were not familiar with. And here, that tells me a lesson for all the young girls who listen to us today, that you've got to listen to your inner feelings. Even when you're not completely determined and you're still very influenceable by the external factors, if you have something that drives you internally, it's very deep, it's profound because it's yours. It's something you need to listen to and really pay attention to. And at the end of the day, the studies that you're going to be doing, they will influence your start of career, but not much more, because this is something we'll come back again later. You will probably continue to learn and do different things after. But listen to your inner feelings, because really this is something that tells something important for you, and it will shape your profile. And in my career, so 20 years in the telecom industry, different companies in France, in Canada, in USA, and also, of course, dealing with operators all around the world. And then 10 years in the aerospace industry, where I am still today working in Airbus, the division Defense and Space of Airbus, to be precise. I had a number of different positions. I worked in the labs, R&D, design, development. I work in the field, close to the customer, close to the end user, really experiencing the grade of service, the throughput, what you can get from the wireless networks. I worked sometimes a little bit in the factory. I worked in the network operation center, monitoring how a network would work. And I also had jobs where I was really facing my Excel spreadsheet, looking at numbers and how we're going to project the revenues, how we're going to protect our EBIT or margin, etc. So I've done a number of different positions, different functions. But there was one thing that was always there from the first position to the position I have today. It's dealing with very complex technical products. It's dealing with technology and products that are not simple, that need to be made with a number of different disciplines assembled together, have a situation of systems where you have to make trade-offs, where you have to understand the user point of view and how it's going to be used. And that was always there, even in the position where I was really business oriented. I needed to understand what these products were. And that was really something important for me, sort of a backbone that I like to be facing that kind of technology. Now, I have to be honest, Lobna, I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in anything. Maybe I've been in the first years, but now it's really over. The product that we do in Airbus Defense and Space, they go everywhere from data fusion algorithm to drive automated decision-making for forces, to, for example, tankers that do automated air-to-air refueling for helicopters, or spacecraft that would bring back samples from Mars. You heard about that in the news recently, I think. We're preparing the rover that will bring back the samples. So they're very different, and they're very technical, and they involve a lot of disciplines. So I'm no more an expert in anything. In Airbus Defense and Space, we have all the people that we need who really know 100 times better than me, all of this technology. But I have a sufficient background to really, first of all, grab and understand the stakes, the challenges, the opportunities, where the problem could be, finding rapidly where it could be, and then also, of course, get the enjoyment and the wonder about what the technology can achieve and how quickly it can evolve.
Oh my God, I think that you, if we have the chance to discuss for hours, you have a lot of story to tell me about the technology and especially the progress that you are doing and leading with the teams for sure collectively about the technology for the airspace, but not so also but for Airbus in general way, which is amazing, right?
Yeah.
So now let's dive deeply a little bit about your current role and the main challenge that you face in a daily basis, let's say.
Yeah. So my company is actually a branch, one of the branch of Airbus, I think quite well known. It's the branch dealing with defense and space. And defense and space is already a very, very large business area that contains a lot of different things. We have been pulled together only 5-6 years ago. So it's not that far away. Before, we were basically some companies, acting one close to the other with no real connection. When we decided to bring together this, we created a community of 9,000 engineers working on all of these products, having all the disciplines from flight dynamics to real-time software, of course, materials and processes, electronics, you name it. So we've got the full panel very clearly. And they work on the diversity of portfolio and products that I've given you examples before. Mm-hmm. And the challenge and this is really a journey. This is absolutely not something that happens like that. Huh? You need to take your time. It's to really make them form one unity, work together, understand each other, and at the end, really see how we can reuse, how we can transfer competencies from one part to the other, how we can align our processes or methods or tools, how we can have the same vocabulary and facilitate people mobility, and how we can be more competitive, because the challenges we have at the end, of course, is that this is a very competitive area. We are facing very fierce competition and also new forms of competition from new entrants on the market. So we absolutely need to be more predictable in our cost estimates, in our schedule estimates. It's a business. Space is a business that has been very long institution driven. So we didn't have the same stringent way of looking at schedule and cost as we do have in the full private business. Now it's completely changed. And of course, we need to be very, very solid and very robust on this area, improve our innovation capabilities, continue to lead the market by being very innovative. And that are things that we can achieve by bringing together better understanding, all the components that we have and trying to see how we can expand, as we can take best practices and put them here. My role in this organization of 8,000 engineers is get to know in depth and in detail all of the different components of engineering and act as this super connector, if you see what I mean. This is what I am today. I'm a super connector. I'm connecting the teams from the various areas, the various disciplines, finding that someone does something, and that maybe by getting them to talk together, we can really do 1 + 1 = 3, we can maybe eliminate a redundancy of product or of component, of module that we have somewhere, and really reach another layer of competitiveness.
So it's a dynamic role, right? With people, with human.
There's a lot of interfaces. There's a lot of people, a ton of people you need to know and understand. And in addition, I mean, I've got a number of missions. Of course, one of them deals really with the predictability of our cost estimates, but another one is also related to the sustainability of the products. Defense and space has not been a pioneering industry for the sustainability concept, because this was not something where our market was really pulling us, but now this is here. And we really need to think life cycle assessment, recyclability of the component, hazardous substances elimination, green IT, all of these things now. And this is why we've introduced, for example, electric propulsion on space. It's also to get that kind of consideration. So this is really something very important, taking a more and more important role. How can technology be considered in the frame of the environmental impact?
Before going to the next topic about women and technology, in this episode, we have always spontaneous questions, additional ones in order to discuss for sure. What is the most enthusiastic topics today that you are working on? One that comes to your mind very quick. I know that you have many, right? But one of them that for sure it's the most enthusiastic from your perspective, not from the business perspective, right? From your perspective, whether it is in your work or in society as well, whether the idea is more from your perspective.
I'm very interested in a subject that I think is underestimated and underused, which is biomimicry. Nature is spontaneously consuming resources in a reasonable manner. Nature is recycling. Nature is paying attention to only using what's needed.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of lessons to take from the nature. We do, of course, already. We have products that have been inherited from the observation of certain species, and we have brought that back into the product. But we have no systemic way of ensuring when we design a product that we take the lessons that we could have from the nature. This is a topic that I'm very interested in, that I think is developing, even in the way it is taught, even in the way we enable the get-together of biologists and engineers, for example. It's not yet, we've not yet reached a point of a satisfactory point. So that is one thing that really excites me.
Great. So we are talking after 2 days from the Women's International Day, right? And one of the main topics, since we are working on diversity and inclusion in technology as well for all genders and not only for women, but let's talk about women and technology now. What are the opportunity and challenge to jump on tech opportunity today, and how can we encourage more young girls to jump on, and especially to believe on their journey over there?
Yeah. So 2 days ago, we had this International Women's Day with a lot of role models who were put on the stage and telling us their story. This is very encouraging, because I see this is getting traction in a lot of countries, in a lot of companies. This every year it has more importance, and I think this is good. I have to say, I think this is good. And some of us, we choose to challenge, this was the motto of the year, choose to challenge.
This year, choose to challenge.
Who we want to stand up to challenge gender bias, stereotypes, discrimination, to challenge unequal chances and salaries, that kind of thing, sometimes male dominance in certain areas. We see progress. We absolutely see progress year after year. This is sure, but we see slow progress, to be honest. We are still today in the tech industry, the positions are held by women. Only maybe 30% are held by women. And if we're speaking about, of course, leadership roles in the tech, then it's only 20%. So we're still not where we should need to go. But I need to say to the young girls that question themselves about their future, this is not an excuse not to join. Because even if we're in minority in certain areas, this is a very, very nice place to be. Because first of all, companies, they pay attention now. A lot of companies, they are very conscious about the need to leverage the whole population and the value of diversity. So there is a real effort made to incorporate, to welcome, to pay attention to the way of thinking of women, to fight these bias and stereotypes, also by educating everybody. So there's really an effort being made here. And also being in a community where maybe we're only 20% is not necessarily painful, it's not necessarily difficult. We have very nice male colleagues, so it's not something we should be afraid of. Second, the tech industry, generally speaking, is growing, is in demand. There's a lot of jobs. So this is a nice place to be. This is where, you can be sure to get a future in this area. And also, this is a place that gives place to creativity. In technology, there's always a chance that you can express a different way of doing. There's an ear open for that. So I think this is really a sweet spot to be.
We talk about technology, and now we will go on AI, artificial intelligence. This is the debate that I'm passionate about for 2 decades. So my question, and the question from our team, is how AI and technology can accelerate the digital transformation and increase the business revenue, since you are working in a daily basis?
This is a very good question, Lobna, and very clearly digital transformation is on its way at light speed. It goes very quick. It will not stop. And even the COVID crisis has really given it an additional impulse, because we've all been learning very quickly to do remote way of working. Digital marketplace became central in everyone's life. Remote operation, virtualized products, everything. So I think that's very clear that now it's a very growing domain, and it's going to continue. Digital transformation is enabled by a number of factors. Number one is high computing systems. Number two is cloud, of course, and virtualization and mass market clouds now available, big data analytics and algorithm, and then, of course, artificial intelligence. And in the last 5 years, all of these pillars, all of these components, they have developed to a degree that now they create really a platform for digital transformation to take place. Such tools are really important. Maybe I can give you a couple of examples about the way I see digital transformation in our business. So maybe I can take the example of the digital twin. And what's the digital twin? It's a replication, it's a model, a digital model of a complex system that models the performance, the behaviors, the consumption, etc., everything. And it can be as complicated as simulating a city with all the interfaces, all the exchanges, all the flows of different nature that a city has to face. And having a digital twin of something is extremely powerful, because it helps you simulate with a very high degree of accuracy the influence of changing something, adding a component, modifying, etc. So it's almost like you're capable of really testing before injecting a very complex change on your system. And by doing that, you enable a very rapid decision making. People are less afraid to make strong investment because they can test in the digital twin. And if I take the example of Airbus, for example, in the way we build an aircraft, we now also do this with a digital twin. So we're going to have a complete digitized end-to-end system from the very early stages of design to the end of the operation that models the aircraft and its ecosystem, the airport and all the rest, to be able to help us in the decision-making and the design. So we save time. It's an acceleration of the time to market.
I have you talk about digital twin, which is great, because we had at least 2 guests who dive deeply in this concept, which is a reality today, so with Didem from Cambridge, but also Neil Watson from Singularity University. And you remember me those topics, very interesting one, that it's part of our reality now. But what are the main challenges of a digital transformation today? I think it's one of them. It's how to help and empower the people, right? To go through this process, which is not an easy process, right? Especially in a big corporate with a lot of verticals, right? So what are the challenge from your perspective today, after more than 25 years?
That's a good point. So there are several challenges. There are some that I think are pretty common to every industry, and there are some that are very specific to our industry, or well, maybe others have it. But so maybe I will start with this one. So one thing that is first we need to understand is that in the aircraft and in the space industry, we have platforms that live for 25 years. And that means that the platforms that have been developed before the digital transformation, somehow they have to continue living this way. It's difficult to transform them. You see what I mean? So we have, one of our problematic is that for many, many years, we will have, the new generation of products where we will have completely digitalized a number of things, and we will have to still maintain the rest. And we have this, we cannot just switch from one to the other.
It's like a parallel mainstream. It's a parallel mainstream in a way to maintain something and to create another thing and then to switch when it's the right time.
Because we need to maintain our install base for many, many years. And there's limits to what you can change on them. Okay. So, and of course, facing that can be perceived as something slowing down the decision to move to the other system. So we need to be very careful that we need to go quickly, even though we will have to maintain on our install base. This is something that in some industries you don't face because products are, changing so often. They don't have the same span, the same life.
Yes, correct. In tech company, we don't face those things because it's going so fast. So even if we have something to, let's say, to refine or to redefine, we can do it very quick. And it's because the process is like this. Initially, it's like this.
Well, then, of course, there's many, many factors, and technology is one, because digital transformation takes a lot of technologies, that is clear, but they are here. They are ready, so it's just up to us to master them. The big problem is really the people. And it's the people on two dimensions. There is the skills, the competencies, the capabilities, and there is the desire, the motivation, and the capability to change. And this is really where the problem is. The problem is not in the tooling, the problem is not in the system. Just to give you a little example, in Europe, because we're working with the European Commission on a project called Pact for Skills, in Europe, we have estimated that in the aerospace industry alone, only aerospace industry, in the next 5 years, we need to upskill 600,000 people. Okay, so it's huge volume of people across Europe that we need to upskill, because what they're doing today and the way they're doing it will change. So it's massive. It's massive. It's training on the job, of course, training rapidly, making their brain really operate differently, approaching more the concept of modeling, system modeling, which are not natural for everyone. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, it's also embracing them. Making sure that they agree, making sure that they buy in, that they understand. So this is no more a question of competencies, then this is really the soft skills. What's in it for me? What will I win? What will I earn by working on that? What will be my role, my decision? There's also, a little aspect about if more decisions or more simulation or calculation are conducted by the machine, what is my value to the job? That kind of question exists, and we can't ignore them, because if we ignore them, we will try to do the upgrade without onboarding the people. It will not work. At some point, we need to. Yeah. So this is really, really where. This is really where it is difficult, and it is.
And this is the hardest part, right? The hardest part is not about skills, but it's about motivation. The second part that you talk about, motivation, engage people with deep belief. This is what I call it: engage people with deep belief, which is very hard, because it's not only engaging people by controlling them or giving them some incentive, and it's right, because I think this model, it's already an old-fashioned model, and it exists, right? But now it's more about diving deeply in their belief and create this engagement according to a belief of a commitment, a real commitment, collectively, in order to increase the revenue and to create new things, new business, new product, new technology, whatever. It depends on the business and the area. But this is the hardest part, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm quite sure that you are challenged in this way, because you are working in thousands of engineers, right? In order to to transform and to help together for sure within your industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. So there's two other questions. We have a concept named Share the Stage and Open the Debate. And within this concept, we invite two questions from the audience to our guests. So the first question is coming from Tao, 36 years from Bijane. Mm-hmm. So she asked, working in a factory for 15 years as a mechanical engineer and reading about the future of work, I'm wondering that my job will not exist anymore after 10 years. Do I need to learn coding to prepare myself for such change in my job?
So Tao, this is really a great question. And I'm pretty sure that your job in 10 years will be different. I'm not sure it will not exist, but it will not exist in the form it is today. Or if it does, then your company will be in serious trouble because the competition will have taken the train and they need to take it as well. So yes, that's clear. Mechanical engineer, we will see a part of the work being progressively done by cobot, by robot, by simulation, by modeling, by calculation, automated calculation. And what you need to learn is not, I'm not sure this is coding as such. I'm not sure this is coding, Tabo, but you need to understand what are these tools that are going to be helping you in your job, and become familiar with these tools, become familiar about how we program them, how we parameter them, how we monitor them, how we get some, how we feed them, how we train them as well, because AI, it's all about training the machine, giving data for the machine to self-learn. So this is what we need to train on. This is not so much coding, but this is really understanding the ecosystem, the technical ecosystem that will surround your activity, and get familiar with it. Yes, absolutely essential.
Great. The second question coming from Nadia, 16 years from Dubai. She said, social media and the virtual world is entertaining and I can spend hours without getting bored. I feel that the virtual world is not for children with all cyberbullying, digital addiction, and more risk. From your perspective, how can we save children and youth people in this? I'm just adding that she's talking on virtual world, right?
Yeah. Well, so Nadia, you touched really the tricky part, because this is a very complicated, very valid and very complicated question, in my opinion. How can we do that? There is a portion of education, this is clear. This is not my field of expertise, although I'm a mom of three who have been quite computer addicts, I have to say. There's a portion of education, because I believe strongly, we as people, we as women, but we as people, we need to show to our people that the life is rich and the life is complete and is not just limited to online connectivity, right? Mm-hmm. Discovering the beauty of nature, visiting the world, when we will be able to do so.
Hopefully soon.
Practicing sport, being surrounded by the wonder of the nature of the planet we live on, appreciating the social, physical contact of people and the deep conversation you can have when you're face to face, not behind the screen, but really, analyzing the emotions and all of this. This is rich, this is rewarding. And if we can find a way to live that ourselves as example, of course, and to transfer this message to our kids, I hope that we can save them from becoming 100% connected, because they need some digital detox. But I know this is not easy. I certainly know it's not easy, because ourselves sometimes we're stuck into this. And I believe regulations play a role as well. I mean, we need to be regulated. We may not like moderation, but to a certain degree, this is right, that internet is not, it's a wild space. It's a very wild space, and social media in particular. And I believe that regulation and moderation need to play their role to protect our kids. And we need to make sure that they don't get access to anything, that there are some controls put in place. And of course, we see this is popping up a little bit in the recent months, where we have seen the social media all of a sudden taking action, not necessarily always appropriate, but at least now they see that they have a corporate responsibility towards the society. And I believe that this needs to be part. Whether these two elements are sufficient to really reach the goal of protecting our kids, I don't know. I see them as two essential elements, but maybe not sufficient.
Okay, so during this discussion, we talk about technology, AI, digital transformation, the role of women in technology. We accept 2 questions, and we are lucky to have them from the audience. Now we will end up on one of the last topics. It's sustainable future. Everyone wants to predict the future, right? And from my perspective, no one knows the future. So that's why we ask those questions to our guests, in order to know more about their vision and their thoughts and what they think about this future. So with an experience of more than 2 decades, Florence, in the technical field, but also as a vice president at the foundation Mines-Télécom, one of the great school in France, and very known one, at least for me. We would like to learn more about your vision of the sustainable future in times of exponential technology era. So the first question is, how looks the future of work?
Very good question. I think if I can think at least about three things that are important for me in the ways of working and how much they are changing right now. So first of all, I believe it can be qualified by hyper-collaborative and hyper-connected. I believe more and more we do work relying on each other and leveraging each other. There are less and less jobs in which we have really a task to accomplish on our own. And the notion of working in teams, the notion of collaborative working is becoming increasingly important. And that calls for certain skills, that calls for certain changes in the education system, in what we teach and how we teach as well, how we expect people to really work. The importance of accomplishing something together, of being capable of taking pride from the group success, not from the individual success, from finding what's good in the others and accepting the not invented here. All of this, is really something on which we have to work at school and then all during all our life, because I believe that this is really, really becoming a credo, something that we will see everywhere. Another thing I see, another trend I see in the future of work is the work-life balance. I think compared to, if I dare say, my generation, I think this generation will certainly put work-life balance as something very important, and they are right, and we are right to do that, because there is nothing that can be sustainable in the long run if we are not having a good work-life balance. So ensuring that we are capable of paying attention to people's needs, balancing their private needs and their professional career. This is something that is important. Accepting the company, the society, to accept that the career doesn't have to be, a very steep curve, always growing this way, but can have some certain, moves and lateralities, etc. I think this is something quite important. And then there is another component that I see that is extremely obvious. It's the adaptability. Because it is clear that nobody will do the same job for a career long, right? For all his life. We will start with a job and then do another one and another one and another one. And what that tells me is that it's important to be considered a permanent learner, a permanent student. Mm. And that says that what we need to be prepared for, it's not so much the content of what we learn that is important, it's the capacity of learning. So it's also the cognitive science and understanding what is good for you, what is good in your brain, in the way you remember, in the way you mobilize your resources, in the way you connect the dots, in the way you memorize, you can change, you can compare situations. And in the way, at the end, you appropriate the knowledge for something and can reuse it for something different. This is very important because this is essential. You're going to have all your life to continue to learn something new and do something different. So adaptability is, for me, one very important criteria.
So if we summarize, and we came with 3 skills, and you came with 3 skills needed for the future of work 2025, like after 4 years now. It's so close, right?
Yeah.
What will be those 3 skills, main skills from your perspective?
Well, pretty much building on what I said before, I would say collaborative. Mm-hmm. Collaborative, very important skills. I would say adaptative,
Okay.
adaptability to different contexts, to different businesses. That's clear. And I would say the last one, I would say maybe I would qualify as attentive. Attentive, what I mean is really deepen your perception skills, pay attention really to the people, to the other, to the situation you observe. So be turned more to the listening and the observability than to the speaking and the show off, etc. So the attention. And of course, then comes the analytical skills to analyze this, but the attention. So that would be for me 3 really important competencies to develop.
So the last one, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are talking much more about connecting deeply with people, but also with details, with things, with everything, right?
Yeah.
New one, right? I love listening to the skills that every guest propose from the perspective of the experience, for sure. And this one is a great one as well.
Yeah. This is not just people. This is also situations.
Yeah.
Situation, analyzing how things, connect and evolve, and there's a learning in that you can reuse. And
generally, the people who are very passionate keep attention on all the details, but they don't do it by purpose. It's something that comes like instantly, very easy for them. Because when you are passionate about something, you pay attention on all the details, whether it's people, but also process, but also even environment, ecosystems, everything. And it's very interesting but my question now, and without making a lot of provocation, because we are going to one of the last question about the future of education. So I will jump and then come back to my question, because this is one more a spontaneous one, and maybe you will answer without I'm asking the question, right? So my third question, firstly, how looks the future of education now?
Alors, on the format, if I can say, on the way of transmitting the information. With COVID, we've seen a great impulse with the remote education, etc., etc. Well, very good. This was nothing completely new, because the MOOC have been starting to rise and become very popular in the last, in the last 10 years. So I think we have experienced that. It will stay. It will stay. We have learned how to use the tools. It will not go down. But I believe strongly that we will see, of course, that it's not going to become all of a sudden a shift to 100% digital schooling, digital education. I absolutely don't believe that. We already see today the limits of the exercise, and we need the human touch to pass the message, to go deeper, to motivate, to inspire as well people. This is very important. So I believe that we will see a balance. We will never go back beyond. We will continue to utilize a lot the remote, but we will see that it's balanced. And something that maybe for me is important is multiculturalism, for example, will probably remain undeveloped. And it will not remain undeveloped because, as in the past, some areas don't have the right schooling system locally, so they need to send the kids abroad. This is disappearing because there's a lot of countries that now start really developing a very strong schooling system. And of course, again, they can remote connect to universities of the world. Now, I think it will continue because the people see the value of diversity. Because we see more and more that it's beneficial to everyone to bring students of different origins together. And it's a factor of creativity. It's a factor of finding new ideas. And this is the reason why I believe that we will continue to see multiculturalism in the school. But at the same time, I believe that the universities and the schools, they will root themselves more in their local ecosystem. At least